In this episode of the Medical School Index, we cover UT Southwestern with Eliza, who is a second-year medical student there. We cover a variety of topics. Something that we cover that's really unique and special is the low tuition cost of UT Southwestern. So you'll want to hear more on that. Also, we talk about the pathways programs at UT Southwestern, which are many, and the dual degree programs. We talk about the 18-month didactic program, which is shortened compared to many schools, which is a trend in a new direction for a lot of the top schools. In addition to that, we talk about what she loves about the area and a variety of other topics that we cover on most episodes. So I think you'll really like this episode. Dallas sounds like a really cool place to live. Only been once, but makes me excited to be in that area as well. So I think you'll really enjoy this episode. All right. Welcome to the Medical School Index podcast. Very grateful for Eliza at UT Southwestern. She's an incoming second-year student there. And just super grateful to have you here, Eliza. Really excited to learn about UT Southwestern as it is kind of a neighboring school to the school I will be attending. Anything you want to add to your introduction or bio?
Not much, but I'm excited to talk about Southwestern. It's a great school and I've really loved my experience here so far. So shoot.
That's great. Let's start talking about Dallas. Where's the school situated?
So the school is situated right in the middle of Dallas. We are right next to the Dallas Love Field Airport, which makes travel pretty convenient, I won't lie. But we're probably a 10-15 minute drive away from downtown. So we're fairly centrally located, and I don't know, it's Dallas. It's a pretty fun place to be. I wasn't from Texas. Moving here for med school was the first time that I'd ever been in this area, but everything they say about Texas is true. Everything is bigger, but it's also a lot of fun. So I've really loved my time here.
That's great to hear. And I feel like there's so much to do in Dallas with like 3 professional sports teams, at least that I know of. There might even be a hockey team.
There is a hockey team.
Okay. So there's probably there might even be 5. I don't even know, but there's a lot to do in that way. There's a lot of universities around there with like SMU and TCU in the Fort Worth area. What are some of your favorite things to do in Dallas?
Oh my gosh, you're totally right. I feel like Dallas is a perfect place for really any med student because truly, no matter what you're interested in, there are extracurriculars, there are activities here for you. I have a lot of friends who are obsessed with the sports scene here. That's not really my thing, but it is fun to go to the occasional, Cowboys game or Rangers games. All the stadiums here, the big ones are all air conditioned. They're all indoors, which I've never experienced before, but it's a really great thing to do in these 100-degree summers. I personally really love the downtown scene. There are lots of excellent restaurants, a wide variety of different types of foods. If you love barbecue, they have great barbecue. If you love Asian food, they have, lots of different varieties of Asian food. But I really love the Dallas Museum of Art. I think it's a really great museum and it's free. And then being a student at UT Southwestern, we get free tickets to go to the Dallas Symphony Orchestra. And so my friends and I have started going to those concerts fairly regularly. And it's a really, really excellent way to kind of relax after a busy week of school.
That's way cool. Any other perks that the school provides to take advantage of the area and the things to do there?
Not really. I mean, like lots of other schools, there's a pretty good variety of gyms and extracurriculars like intramurals that are offered by Southwestern. However, there aren't any other, I guess, benefits or deals that we get, at least none that I'm aware of.
Okay, cool. And I'm unaware. So like, is UT Southwestern a undergraduate institution as well, or is it completely just a graduate institution?
It's a completely graduate institution. So it's separate from the University of Texas, Dallas, and it's also not connected to SMU, one of the other big universities here. It's a graduate school that's for health professions. So we have lots of people here who are getting their PhDs. We have people here who are becoming physician assistants, physical therapists. That's who we share our campus with. And so it's a pretty cool environment to be surrounded by people who are all studying and thinking about similar things that we are.
Okay, that's awesome. And we'll just dive into this now because I feel like it's something we don't want to forget about uh, the Texas schools. So, can you tell us a little bit about the tuition opportunities at UT Southwestern for both in-state and out-of-state students?
Yeah. So to be honest, I know nothing about the out-of-state tuition cost because as soon as you're admitted to the university or to UT Southwestern, as an out-of-state student, you are offered in-state tuition. So tuition and fees comes to about $22,000, $23,000 a year, which is a lot less expensive than a lot of the other schools that I applied to and that I got into when I was going through my application cycle. And so it is a pretty big perk. Um, Texas public schools have have this pattern of having less expensive tuition. The government subsidizes it, and so it's a really big blessing to be able to attend a school like this. That said, as an out-of-state student, you do have a lower chance of getting into UT Southwestern or other public Texas medical schools. The average percentage of out-of-state students at UT Southwestern is between 5 to 10%. However, I feel like just in talking to people in my class, it seems like that percentage is higher because there are a lot of students who are from maybe Texas or have some connections to Texas, but really they grew up or went to undergraduate universities in other states. So it's a pretty diverse class, even though technically 90% of the class is from Texas.
Okay, cool. And a little bit about the class. We talked about this before we hit record, but so UT Southwestern has a bigger class size. Can you talk about just what that looks like and what you like about that?
Yeah, so my class size is about 237 students, which is a lot bigger than most medical schools. I think the other school I was considering going to had a class size of 140. And to me, that was never really a big negative. I like being surrounded by lots of different people. I like having the opportunity to get to know more people, but I can understand how for some students that isn't, a big selling point. What I will say is that I believe that the school does a really good job of making it feel like you're still in a smaller community. One way they do this is through a colleges system. So my class split up into
Mm-hmm.
6 different colleges. I like to think of it as Hogwarts houses, and they're each named after an important physician that came from or worked at Southwestern. So I'm a part of Fashena College. Our mascot is the ghost, and we have a lot of Fashena pride. One way that they like to, build class camaraderie is by doing these like class Olympics. And so there's these games and you compete with your class and there's a trophy that moves around the different class common rooms. So each college has a different space that's just dedicated to the people from their college. So, if you split 240 people over 6 colleges, you get a small group. So you do some things within your college. Your college group is then split up into groups of 6. And you have these mentor groups where you have 6 medical students assigned to one position. And those groups are where you receive a lot of one-on-one mentorship for your career. Those groups are where you learn how to do the physical exam and conduct a history, where you learn about ethics. And so that small group becomes another really close, tight-knit group of people who you can confide in, who you can be vulnerable with, and receive a lot of support through too. Um, Other ways the class is split up, we have these, required activities where we have to come together as a group and do different assignments, do different activities. And so we're assigned to then an additional group of 6 to 10 students. And so you really do get to know a wide variety of people in your class, but it all feels very organic. Your anatomy group is another group who you become very intimate with. And again, that's a different group of people, not from your same college, who, you get the opportunity to learn with.
Okay, awesome. So there's interaction outside of your college, it sounds like. And
Oh, absolutely.
um, do you just like, I guess it sounds like those 6 students you do a lot with, but the other 40, what do you do with those like 40 people?
Within your college's
Uh-huh.
group, Honestly, you don't do a whole lot outside of the like the Summer Olympics or the you meet your group for the first time, your college's group at the end of orientation. They have a big sorting ceremony, and so then you get together with your group of 40, and then your last day and a half of orientation are spent doing kind of relay races and competing with the other colleges. It creates a competitive spirit, but it's all in, I don't know, good nature. It's really fun. So apart from those events, you don't do a whole lot just with your college's group. I guess you do some things like, for example, Southwestern puts a big focus on pathology and learning histology in their curriculum. And one of the ways we do that is we have these gross pathology sessions where our gross path physician, he will show us specimens of different organs based off of the organ block that we're in. And we'll do those workshops just within our college's group.
Okay, cool. So there's definitely a lot that you do together.
Oh, yeah.
And just while we're on the subject of orientation, let's transition into kind of the schedule. So, it sounds like you guys start at the beginning of August, and then what does your first year look like? And you can paint this picture however you'd like.
Yeah. So school starts for MS1s the very first week of August. The first week of August is dedicated to orientation. There's no one else on campus. So it's just you, your classmates, and the deans. So it's a nice slow way to get, your feet wet to get started in med school. And then starting from the second week on until December, you're in your first semester. And at Southwestern, your first semester is all about getting everyone in your class up to the same level when it comes to, the foundational sciences you need to know before you start studying your organ blocks. So you're split up across, or your semester is split over a bunch of different classes, and you're taking a couple of classes concurrently. So you'll take anatomy from about August until midway through November. You'll take microanatomy for 6 weeks during that time as well. You'll be in biochemistry courses for a few weeks. You'll be in cell biology, genetics, pharmacology. And then the last course you end on in your first semester is an immunology class. And that's a class where you get introduced to the immune system, but then also some of the major bacteria, fungi, and viruses that humans are unfortunately infected with sometimes, and then some of the drugs that you use to combat those. So that's your first semester. First semester is the hardest semester at Southwestern because you are just in a multitude of classes, and you're never in more than 3 classes at once, but it definitely is hard. Sometimes you're definitely drinking out of that fire hose, but it's a great way to get prepared for organ blocks, because for your second semester at Southwestern, you're just in one class at a time, and it's just a different organ system. So we started out with the musculoskeletal system. We did 5 organ blocks before ending for the summer, and we will return to the organ blocks again in August, and we'll do a few more before we're done with our pre-clerkship phase.
Okay, awesome. So it sounds like it's a system-based curriculum after you finish
Yep.
the foundations.
Yep.
And then how is anatomy? Is that in your first semester as well?
Yep. Anatomy is in your first semester. You take it from August until midway through November. They split the course up into 3 blocks. And at the end, you have an exam, but it's not cumulative. It's just for that last block, which is a godsend. Um, Anatomy at Southwestern is a dissection lab. So you have lectures where you have lectures that review the material and review some of like the functions of those materials, but the majority of your time is spent dissecting. And so you're not doing the dissections during your organ blocks, which is what I know some schools do.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of prefer it this way because when I was in the organ blocks last semester, I wanted nothing to do with the dissection lab. I didn't want to spend my time having to dissect. It was nice just to get it all out of the way. But that was, that was my experience. That's what I liked. But yeah, you work on a cadaver for the better part of a semester with a group of 3 or 4 people, and it's a challenging thing to do, but some people love it and other people don't. I think that's going to be your experience with anatomy no matter where you go.
Right. Yeah, it's super cool. They do dissection as well. I think some people prefer that, um, especially those going into surgery.
Yeah.
Um, but let's talk a little bit about grades just in the didactic section of UT Southwestern's program.
Yeah. So thankfully, UT Southwestern is a pass-fail system during your pre-clerkship, which is excellent. I love it. The passing percentage is 70%. And it's,
Wow,
it's
that's
a it's a
nice.
flat it's a flat 70%. And I don't know, just to give you some insider information, they curve too. So I would say the vast majority of my class is scoring between 85, 90%. We get class statistics based off of every quiz and every exam we take. And I would say that our class average is typically between the 85, 90 range. Every med school class is full of a bunch of smart people who are going to work hard. But they
Mhm.
make it manageable. There are some tests and quizzes that I can think of where, the class scored a lot lower than normal. Going to happen. Sometimes renal is going to kick you in the butt, but yeah, it's a flat 70% pass mark, and like I said, they curve. So even if you don't make it, they don't want to have to force you to retake the course. They can, depending on how you score, they can help you out.
That's nice. And it's a true pass fail in the sense that there's no other distinction, no AOA, like no class
No,
rank.
no class rank. I believe that they begin ranking you during your clerkship, but pre-clerkship, it's all the same.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, that's been super interesting to see. And I think there's definitely an advantage to being pass fail, especially with step one going pass fail. And then I think there's an advantage though, like of having grades in your clerkships, at least in my opinion, because kind of gives you a way to like differentiate yourself. But some people might prefer a pass fail system. Um,
Yeah, I mean, what I will say just from experience, having the pass fail grading, it doesn't do anything to make you feel like, oh man, like this is still comfortable material. The 70% always feels like a little bit of a stretch. And that's just medical school. Like the content that you're learning, you're never going to feel overly prepared. And so that 70% is always going to feel like a reach, at least if you're neurotic like me. But as I said, the vast majority, like the vast majority of my classmates and I were getting well above the passing mark.
Okay, super cool. And then so let's dive into the clerkships. So for those listening, UT Southwestern is like many other schools that are kind of on the cutting edge, changing to a shortened preclinical year. So uh, right now they have an 18-month didactic curriculum. So they end in looks like December of their second year and then enter their clerkships. But um, there's a lot that goes on there. So I know based on their curriculum map, it looks like you take step one at the beginning of that period of time of your clerkships. So I guess it's before they begin. Can you clarify that timeline,
Yeah,
Eliza?
actually, this is something that is a recent change. So come October of your second year, so right during that first semester, you begin to fill out some questionnaires that help admin decide how to set up your clerkship period. So your second half of year two and then all of year three. And in past years, when step one has been graded, they've given students the opportunity to take step one either at the end of January, the end of February, or the end of March. So some students may start, or it used to be that some students would maybe start with a clinical rotation. They might go and start with family med and then study for step, have their 6 weeks off to study, and then take it. Something though that's really cool is that our admin listened to this last MS2 class, and our last MS2 class said, hey, since step one is now pass fail, we think that all students should take step one at the end of January so that they have that opportunity to study the material, get really confident with it before they begin their clerkships. And so starting my year, every student in my class is going to take step one 6 weeks, I guess, into the year. So either at the end of January, beginning of February, that's going to be the period of time we have to take step one.
Okay, that's awesome. And then you begin your clerkships, which is super nice to begin those early.
Yeah.
Where do you rotate for those clerkships?
So you rotate all over. Something that's great about Southwestern is the fact that as a school, we have kind of the regional superiority. There's no other med school in Dallas, so you're not really competing with other schools, at least just distinctly in the Dallas area. So we get access to Parkland Hospital, which is a pretty, famous hospital here, actually really in the country. We have another
Mhm.
really excellent hospital here. It's called the Clemens Hospital or just the UT Southwestern Hospital. Then we also go to other hospitals around the area. We go to the VA. And then depending on the clerkship that you're in, you may be in clinics. Family medicine allows you to do some rotations out in Tyler, Texas, or in some other rural areas. You have opportunities to see different types of clinics. So if you want to see, for example, a direct primary care clinic, that's something that you can do. I have a friend right now who he's doing his psychiatry rotation and he's at the prison. So you have lots of different areas where you can do your rotations. And those are things that you sign up for or that you kind of make a list based off of your preferences for as you prepare to do those clerkships.
That's awesome. Are there any like unique, because there's kind of like a standard for uh, the clinical clerkships in terms of like the ones that you do, but I've noticed that some schools have like added anesthesiology or emergency medicine. Are any of those included in your clerkships, or are those more of like a fourth year elective rotation?
Those are more like a fourth year elective rotation. I will say that during our 18, I believe it's 18 months of our clerkship period, you do have 6 weeks of elective time. So that's when, if you want to, you can go spend some time doing anesthesiology, you can do ENT, you can go and do, if for example, you know that you want to do family medicine, you can go and spend more time in the family med world, outside of the dedicated clerkship. Um, so you have some wiggle room there, but I would say that for the most part, we just stick to the standard clerkships, and then you can do more electives during your fourth year.
Okay, awesome. And then, so I was looking at the curriculum. So it looks like they like allot 18 months for the clerkships before you begin like your fourth year. But it looks like they've added some additional items in there that isn't just going to be all these like clinical rotations. So one of the things that I noticed on the website it talked about is I think it's called like innovations in medicine or something like that, where you have to create a product. Do you know much about that?
So I think you're talking about like the scholarly activity,
Yes.
which we have. Yeah, we have dedicated time. It's 12 weeks that's dedicated to doing research. And what's cool is that they don't pigeonhole you into basic research. I know some people, they love that. They need it because they're going to be a neurosurgeon. And so they need to have that, a basic science. They need those basic science publications. However, if you're more interested in community health or global health, you can spend your 12 weeks doing a project in one of those tracks. So the different tracks they give you, there's a basic research track, clinical and translational research, community health, global health, medical education, and quality improvement and patient safety. So really the school is giving you an opportunity over those 12 weeks to, beef up your CV if you need to get some publications on there, but also it gives you a little bit of a break to study something that you might be fascinated by. And I think that's really nice just to have that opportunity to, one, breathe, not have a test to worry about, have some time off just to, to research. But it also just allows you to investigate what you're curious about and to learn more about what interests you within medicine. Because sometimes when you're in med school, you just get so narrow-minded. You get so focused on what you're studying that you lose sight of what things actually interest you in the career.
Right. So it sounds like everybody chooses at least one pathway because everybody does that scholarly activity.
Yep, everyone has to do the scholarly activity. Everyone has to pick one of the tracks, and based off of, for example, If you are a distinction student, so if you have selected to be a part of one of the MD with distinction tracks, then your scholarly activity is kind of chosen for you. For example, at Southwestern, you can become an MD with a distinction in global health. And what that means is that you're going to dedicate more time over your 4 years to investigating something within the world of global health. That distinction program in particular allows you to do research. It allows you to do some of your rotations abroad, which is really cool, when COVID isn't a thing. But it also means that for your scholarly activity, you're going to spend your 12 weeks doing something that's global health related. Now, you don't need to be a distinction graduate to do the global health track. That's not what I'm planning on doing global health, but I'm not doing the distinction. But it is another awesome opportunity that the school provides.
That is super cool. And I imagine if you do one of those distinction tracks, you're kind of like taking classes, like maybe one extra small class throughout your first or second year.
So Southwestern does offer little electives. They are very, very, very chill. Like it's a 1 hour meeting a week for maybe like 8 to 10 weeks of the semester. And so there is, like, going back to the global health example, there is a global health elective that you take during your first year that would then allow you to apply to the global health distinction. But they're very relaxed. It's more like, it's like a lunchtime talk where you just go in, you sit, you learn about something that interests you, and you might have to write a reflection paper at the end, but it's it's not a stressor.
Okay. Okay. Super cool. And then I know we talked a little bit about, so there's like an MBA program there, an MPH, and then also a PhD. Something I thought was really interesting is that it sounds like you can basically do an MPH in 4 years at UT Southwestern by kind of, I imagine, do they use like the scholarly activity to use that to complete your MPH?
I think the scholarly activity helps. From the people who I know who are doing the MPH, they're spending this summer, they're the first summer after med school, or sorry, the first summer after first year, doing some MPH research that's required for their program. But I think the scholarly activity might be distinct. I'm not 100% sure on that point. But what I do know from my friends who are doing the joint MD MPH is that they started taking classes the summer before first year. And then they took 1 to 2 classes during their first few semesters. The schedule is, it's up to you to decide. It's flexible. So if like, for example, there are friends in my class who they were having a baby the second semester. So they weren't going to take heavier classes, or they weren't going to take extra MPH classes during that second semester. But you have some flexibility to finish the classes at your own pace, but you can do it within 4 years if you start early.
Okay. That's super cool. That's pretty unique. One other thing that I noticed on the school's website is they talked about how you could do like a MS0 and MS1 summer research program. And a lot of schools do like a research program between your first and second year, but I thought it was pretty cool that they offered an opportunity to do some research even before you start med school. Do you know anybody who's done that and their experience with that?
I don't know anyone who's done that. I do know a few people who are doing the summer research program between years 1 and 2. And I know that it's a paid opportunity. I know that it's like 40 hours a week. And it's a great way that if you are interested in getting some research in, getting some publications in, and making some connections with faculty before starting school, it would be a great opportunity. Most people I know, they want to take that summer off before they start school. But yeah, I've heard of the program, and I know that, Southwestern is a great place to do research. So if you're interested, you should go for it.
That's way cool. Well, there's so many different pathways. It sounds like you could do any number of combinations. Um, One question that I need to circle back to that I wanted to include was, I imagine this is the case as many schools are doing this, but are the lectures at UT Southwestern recorded, and are they mandatory?
They are not mandatory. They are recorded. I'm a part of the stream team. I went to like 2 lectures in person last year, and even better for me, they give us access to last year's recordings. So I personally like to start my day early with lectures. I'd start listening to lectures before, the day's lectures even began, and I would listen to last year's lectures, get through those, then do my Anki and focus on the other things.
That's super nice.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that from a lot of schools that are providing the last year's. That's nice to get ahead.
Yeah.
Well, just as we wrap up here, some final things. Are there any? Oh, actually, there's one other thing. This relates kind of my technology question. UT Southwestern, I noticed, has like a simulation program there. Have you been able to interact with that at all? And do you know much about it?
Oh yeah. Yeah. There is no getting away from the simulation center. We're in there at least once a month, and we were there fairly frequently during our first semester. The simulation center, it was built in 2018, so it's brand new, like all of the facilities here, except for South Campus, where you go and take your classes. It's older for sure. It gives you that like old 1970s college vibe. It's adorable. But the hospitals have all been built since like 2015, so they're beautiful. And the simulation center is a part of that. It was built in 2018, and that's where you go. The first way I interacted with it was practicing my physical exam skills. So every few weeks during our first semester, we would go in after having learned a new part of the physical exam, and we'd go practice on standardized patients, basically people from the community who are getting paid to let us examine them. And so you go in, every room looks like just, a basic doctor's office, basic doctor's room. And you go and you practice your physical exam, and then you leave. And then all of that is recorded, it's sent to your mentor, and then they give you feedback. It's pretty cringy to watch yourself do the physical exam the first few times, but you get over it. Then in the second semester, the way that we'd use the simulation center was that every month, based off of the organ block we were in, we would be thrown into this trauma room, and we'd have a mannequin, and the mannequin would present with some type of acute illness. And we would have a physician there who would guide us through the experience. They'd pretend to be our nurse. And as a group of 4 or 5, we'd have to figure out, okay, what's going on with this patient? What are they feeling? We'd ask for labs, and then labs would show up. We'd administer drugs, and the drugs would take effect. And it was a really, really cool way to learn. It's always kind of startling when you have a mannequin yelling at you, but it was also really cool. Another way that we used the simulation center last year is that the simulation center had it has every tool, every piece of technology you could think of. There's a Da Vinci in there that you could go learn how to practice with, probably if you're a resident or a fellow. But we had, during our cardiology block, we had somebody walk through and teach us how to do echocardiograms. And that was really, really cool to be able, we were practicing on a mannequin, but we had this fellow teach us, and we were able to manipulate the equipment ourselves and, see the heart on the screen. And, it's just fun to have those moments when you're in the middle of your pre-clerkship and everything is bookwork. It's so cool to have little things that remind you one day you're actually going to be doing this on a patient. One day it's going to be real and practical. And so that's why the simulation center is so great. You get to, get your hands dirty. That's fun.
That would be a great opportunity just to prepare for the clerkships, get a little bit more comfortable. So
totally.
Super cool.
Totally.
One last question about technology. Do they provide students with like a butterfly ultrasound or anything like that?
No, we don't get any type of technology package, at least not yet. Maybe that will change in the next year or two based off of, what other med schools start doing. And we don't get many like online deals either. I think first aid is available through the library if you want to read it online. And then I also know that we get access to UWorld while we're preparing for step 1, which is honestly excellent. Like that we will take. But then at the beginning of every semester, there's an email that's sent out where discounts are offered for popular things like Amboss, Sketchy, Boards and Beyond, anything that you might want to use to just deepen and accentuate your studying. They'll offer discount codes for, but unfortunately, UWorld's the only thing that we get for free.
Okay. No, that's cool. It's super helpful to know. Well, just as we wrap up, final question is just what really sold you on UT Southwestern, and what would you tell to students who are thinking about applying to um, really sell them on UT Southwestern or help them in their application.
Yeah. Like I said, I had zero experience with Texas when I went into my application cycle. And the only reason why I even applied to Texas schools is because a lot of people from my undergraduate institution, they ended up in Texas and they all had excellent things to say. And I saw the cost of tuition and thought, it could be a good idea. But I was definitely shocked when I got lots of attention from Texas and when I got into Southwestern. And ultimately, what I guess sold me on the school was not only the cost of tuition, but it was the environment. It was the opportunity to be in a place that's completely different to any place I'd been to before. And I wanted to be in a very diverse community. And Dallas is that. When you interview with Southwestern, they make a big emphasis on the fact that they want you to know Spanish. And that's not novel for other med schools. Like every med school wants you to know Spanish, but really, like when you're working at Parkland Hospital, the vast majority of your patients are going to be Spanish speaking. And so that was something that seeking after diversity, having that opportunity to be in a place where there was a safety net hospital, that was big for me because I wanted to have a more thorough educational experience. I also wanted to stretch myself. So I wanted to go somewhere new. And also, I hate winter. I hate the cold. And Dallas is the opposite of that. If you can't handle, 100-degree summers, then maybe Dallas is not the right place for you. But for me, I loved having a very temperate fall and winter.
Yeah, that is a super nice gig in Dallas. I am also excited for that.
What I'll also say about Dallas, what I've learned since living here is that Dallas attracts a really, I guess I'm going to use the word diverse again, but it does attract a diverse young adult population. I have lots of friends who are accountants, teachers, lawyers, med students, nurses. You have lots of people here who are in healthcare, but really you have like young adults who are doing lots of different things. So from a social perspective, Dallas has been a really, really great place to settle and make my home.
That's awesome. Sounds like a great place to be a young person. So
Mhm.
I'm just down the road and I definitely was sold on that too. So um well, if you don't have anything else to add, Eliza, thank you so much. This has been just super this has been super informational. I feel like we covered so much in such a short period of time. So I really appreciate you.
Of course. I'm glad that I was able to help out.
No worries. Well, take care. We'll talk soon.
Talk soon.